schools. News 13 investigative reporter Larry Barker reopens the file on a crime that shocked the state.
They weren't prostitutes, they weren't drug dealers, they were two little girls.
And it's a week that I'll never forget.
It shouldn't happen. The world's full of people that are just absolute evil.
Some folks say nothing really ever happens here in Carlsbad, but they didn't live here 50 years ago. You see, Carlsbad changed forever on August 11th, 1961. It's the day Patty Pritz and Mattie Riestein disappeared. They were just kids growing up in this small southeast New Mexico town. It's a bizarre government project.
I had to admit, I did not know what it was.
It cost taxpayers a ton of money. Was this $500,000 well spent?
No, it was not.
A quiet backroom deal. You see, this is not just art, it's an experience. And the experience depends on a pristine environment. That's why its home is on the range in the wide open spaces. You see, it simply would not do to have a super Walmart or a bunch of condos spoil the background. In '07, the state jumped into the world of supercomputing, plopping down $11 million for the third most powerful device in the world. New Mexico's system is capable of 172 trillion calculations a second. It's the rough equivalent of 484,000, or about 500,000 laptops linked together. Supercomputers are used to solve complex problems for such things as genetics, medicine, and climate. The machine is housed under tight security at Intel. The electricity bill alone tops $1 million a year. The promise? To generate enough revenue to be self-sustaining. It would be our own field of dreams. Build it, and they will come. But in New Mexico, they didn't come. Promoters say the active ingredient may protect against heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, reverse Alzheimer's, lower cholesterol, heal hemorrhoids, all that and more. Wow. But it's not a medicine. It's a nutritional supplement laced with vitamins. You can find the active ingredient L-arginine just about anywhere. But if you want this special formula, well, you won't find it at Walgreens. This product is at the heart of a vast multi-million-dollar network dedicated to sales and exaggeration. Pro-Arginine Plus is distributed here in Provo, Utah, south of Salt Lake, at the headquarters for Synergy Worldwide. Now, they don't wear lab coats here. It's not a medical research facility. You see, Synergy Worldwide is not about medicine. It's about sales. And the star of the show is this so-called medical miracle in a 10-ounce jar. Synergy is called a multi-level marketing firm selling a host of pills, potions, and lotions. The firm uses independent distributors to hawk its magic elixirs. For example, a sales rep will make a small commission for every jar of Pro-Arginine they sell. The only way to make big bucks with Synergy is by recruiting your friends and neighbors to sell the product as well. The more people you recruit, the more money you make in commissions.
We don't quit. We don't sleep.
They call it The Burrowers, a science fiction drama filmed in New Mexico. Look familiar? Well, probably not. You see, this creepy thriller wasn't exactly a box office hit. That's because it never made it to the box office. You see, The Burrowers was a dud that went straight to DVD. But here's a piece of movie trivia. The entire $7 million Hollywood production was made possible by New Mexico taxpayers. In fact, over the course of a decade, some $239 million in public money has been plowed into Hollywood movie productions. New Mexico's film investment program was authorized by the legislature. It allows the State Investment Council to make interest-free loans to movie studios that produce their films in New Mexico. For Hollywood, it's free use of millions of dollars in public money. For New Mexico, it's an opportunity to generate film jobs and economic growth by encouraging in-state movie production. The other objective, simply put, to make a profit. Public money can be invested in movie productions if they offer the potential for generating returns to taxpayers. Steve Moise was hired as the state investment officer last year.
Our primary charge is to earn an appropriate return by investing the permanent funds of the state without taking undue risk.
Isn't an investment in a film production pretty risky?
There is a considerable amount of risk in film investment, yes.
For example, in 2006, state officials poured $15 million into a feature-length comedy called Swing Vote, starring Kevin Costner. Hundreds of locals were hired as crew for scenes in Albuquerque and Belen. But Swing Vote was a box office flop. There were no profits. And although the $15 million was paid back, taxpayers suffered a $1.6 million loss from the no-interest loan. It's not just Swing Vote. Practically all of the film investments have soured. Even though all the loans were paid back, New Mexico's bank account has been drained of millions through lost interest. Remember, New Mexico's film investments are limited to only those projects that have a, quote, reasonable probability of turning a profit. State investment officials may know a lot about stocks and bonds and next to nothing about the make-believe world of Hollywood. Movie deals are tricky, so the Investment Council hired an expert. Meet film investment advisor Peter Deckham.
Can you all hear me? Is this on?
A Hollywood insider, a top-dollar movie industry lawyer with connections. The Investment Council paid Deckham handsomely to review movie loan applications and make investment recommendations. For example, Deckham endorsed a $3.8 million interest-free loan to a comedy Western horror flick called Undead or Alive. But it was a box office bust, and so was the low-budget horror film Cruel World that had free use of $1.7 million. And it was Deckham who thought a $15 million investment in the movie Elvis Has Left the Building might just pay off for taxpayers. Elvis not only left the building, it left taxpayers in the lurch. Out of the 24 film productions that the state invested in, how many of those actually provided a return to the state in profit?
One.
Is that a great return?
It is not.
Although an objective of the loan program was to make money, in the end, only the film advisor cleaned up. Peter Deckham's been paid more than $2 million to give advice. On the other hand, taxpayers lost almost $30 million from no-interest loans made to losing film deals. Now, when it comes to Hollywood movie making, everyone's an expert, and no one is. Is there such thing as a Hollywood insider who really can look at a project and predict it's going to make a ton of money?
Unless they're a psychic with really good connections, I don't think so.
Professor Sherry Burr teaches entertainment law at UNM's law school.
The problem is people who are not intimately connected to the industry make a mistake because they get thrilled about the idea of investing in films and they don't understand how the accounting works.
Hollywood insiders will tell you if you want to make money on a motion picture, you need to get a percentage of the box office receipts right off the top. But New Mexico's deals were different. In the state's case, taxpayers would cash in only if the film turned a profit. And in Hollywood, profit is like this western town. It's an illusion.
When you look at Titanic, which made $1.8 billion, cost $200 million to make, it also lost money according to studio accounting figures.
I told you to let me pass on.
In New Mexico, even Seraphin Falls co-stars Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson could not return a profit for the state's $15 million investment. Instead of being a bonanza, Seraphin Falls was a bust.
It's just the way Hollywood plays the game. You have to understand the accounting system if you're going to play with the Hollywood folks. All films lose money according to Hollywood.
If it were up to you and you had complete control over this, would you invest $239 million in film productions?
I doubt that the council would have invested $239 million in film loans.
Moise says New Mexico cannot afford to play the game any longer. For starters, the Investment Council now has new membership, and one of their first orders of business, they fired Peter Deckham. And while the state can still make movie loans, the investments will no longer be interest-free. So far, there have been no takers. Larry Barker, KRQE News 13.